Hey everybody, this is Robert with RC Archery. I've got part 3 here of the vlog slash Podium X Elite HyperEdge comparison. This is going to be the last in the series. It's going to have all the tech, all the specs, all the nerdy stuff that I actually really enjoy. So if you've ever seen any of my articles in the past, if you've ever seen any of the videos that I do on my reviews, you know that I actually like to get down, break everything apart, see why it works, the way it does, see what's going on with it and get a better understanding of it all. And that's exactly what I'm going to do with these two bows here behind us. I'm going to make sure that I can explain exactly why each riser and each limb geometry works the way it does, and then at the end of the video I'll give you my choice as to which one I would shoot. Alright guys, so I'm going to start out with the Podium X Elite here. This is the 37 model, so they have a 37 and a 40. This is the 37. It's a little bit shorter riser, but in comparison to the HyperEdge, they're very, very similar on numbers and string angles. So this is a very good comparison between the two. This is also the personal bow that I've decided to shoot for the last couple of years now. So with that being said, let's go over everything about it. Basically with these bows, this is what I would consider a traditional type target bow. You're looking at a more forward-facing limb pocket, so this area right in here, this is the actual limb pocket itself. It's more forward-facing. You can see kind of the riser and limb angle and everything designed here. It's also got limbs that are more vertical, so they're not completely vertical, but they're also not horizontal or beyond that. This is a type of bow that's going to give a feedback on the shot and give a direction to its energy. Now, what does that mean when we talk about that? Well, because of the way that the limbs and everything are designed, they're going to come back down almost to a horizontal position and they spring back forward. And what that does is it actually makes the bow pull back into your hand more whenever you're holding it and drawing it and holding it at full draw. And then when you go to shoot your shot and the limbs and everything go to expand and go back to their natural position, it makes the bow jump forward. Now for me, and what I have found is that's a very forgiving setup. One, because it's pulling back in your hand, it's giving a little bit of back pressure onto you and it fights the torque that you would put directly into that grip. It also is going to fight some of the canning and everything that you see in the bow as well. I really like this setup, and I've actually seen it be very forgiving on my mistakes, especially at a long range. Because it has a little bit of direction of energy, it's already got a motion and direction that it's wanting to go, and if I put a little bit of torque in that natural direction of it, it fights it a lot better. So I'm going to draw this bow back really quick. Just keep an eye on the limbs here. This is the part that I want to go over. I want you to see kind of how they flex down almost to a horizontal position and how they'll go back up. And then I'm going to do one more view where I draw it towards the camera and let you see kind of how to fight the movements, kind of talk through that as a comparison to what the HyperEdge will be later. So whenever I go to draw this bow back, you can see it here. It kind of, I mean, it's not completely horizontal, but it's getting close. And then when I go to let it forward, you can see that it's going to want to respond and go back to that vertical direction. So the other view of that is being able to pull it back in the hand here and hold it at full draw. Now keep in mind, I have no stabilizers on these bow, and I did that on purpose because I want just the bow itself and its merit to be what you look at on here. Nothing extra from what you can do with the stabilizer balance. So when I go to draw this bow back and hold it at full draw here, you can see that on its own, even with me talking here, it's still a very stable platform. It still holds in place very well and it aims very well on its own. When I go to put a little bit of torque in the riser, I've got to really move it and really curl my hand around to get it to move any at all. Little bits of movement, like if I'm going to tense up my hand on my shot or move it, that's all it's going to move on an extreme case. Same thing about torquing it left and right. I've really got to put some movement in it to torque it left and right. Normally, if I'm going to drift a little bit during my shot or move, I'm not going to move really a whole lot. This is probably going to be on the extreme end of that spectrum. And for me, that makes a very forgiving setup. Like I said, it has a direction for energy. It has a direction on what it wants to do. I really like this platform. I really feel like it's a very capable bow. It's kind of an improvement that they've worked on bit and bit from their early iterations of it with the Ultra Elite, the Vantage Elite, Pro Comp Elite, and now the Podium X Elite. And then at this point in time, in a couple weeks, they'll be coming out with a new model, I assume, to replace this. We'll get to see what they did with that as well. Alright guys, so now we've got the Hoyt HyperEdge. So this is going to be what I would consider a hybrid type bow. They're combining a lot of their features from their hunting line with their target line and creating a very capable and very good target or hunting applicated bow. So when we look at this as a direct comparison with the Podium, I want to start out with what I would consider the biggest differences on here, and that's going to be the limb pocket and the limbs. So you'll notice on this one the limb pocket is angled a little bit more vertical, and on the limbs they were designed to be beyond parallel type limbs, so they've got a little bit of a pre-bend to them, and they're actually in a beyond horizontal position here with the end points. When you go to draw it back, obviously it goes down a little bit more, and then it comes back to this position. Because of the design and the way they're built, when you go to shoot this bow, as you draw it back, it just compresses everything together, and then as you go to release the shot, it springs it back out. And then it does this in a vertical and up and down manner. Now, what that does for you is it gives you what a lot of people are going to say is a very dead in the hand bow. It's going to take all that feedback out of it. It's going to create a little less vibration. So this one's actually pretty vibration free, just because of the string stop and everything else that they put on it. But what that does is it also changes how it feels in your hand. You don't have that riser pulling back into your hand to help stabilize your shot, and you don't have it coming out in a certain direction to help you with your inconsistencies in your grip. So Hoyt actually came through with the design to be able to combat that and to make this bow as stable as possible. And what they did was they created their longest riser that they've ever built to date, and that helped really stabilize this bow out. When you look at a lot of the target bows and people talk about an indoor bow, they're talking about longer axle-to-axle bows, and what you're generally getting from that is longer risers with the same limb configuration. So like on the Podium, the difference between the 37 and the 40 is all in the riser. So it creates a longer riser with the exact same limbs. So that's what they did on this system. This riser is incredibly long, and after this section I'm going to actually give you some numbers and some breakdowns. It was really shocking to look at them side by side, and even more so when you see the numbers. So what they did with this is made it a little bit wider and a lot longer, and that's going to help you with the stability. And you actually notice it when you go to draw this bow back and hold it on target, even without stabilizers. It aims very, very well. It holds on target extremely well, and there's not a lot of movement. Where I feel it has its biggest downfall is going to be on a long-range shot and when you mess up on your shots. And the reason I say that is because it doesn't have that same feedback coming out of the shot, and it doesn't have that same pull into your hand like on that Podium and like on the traditional type target risers. It's not horrible, and I can definitely say that I've shot on par scores with what I would do with my Podium, and I've shot some amazing groups with this bow. When I make a little bit of a mistake though, I notice it more in the HyperEdge than what I do on the Podium. Another part of it is I can feel it in my hand more. I can actually feel it capable of being able to move around in my hand a little bit more when I'm at full draw with the grip than what I do on that Podium as well. While it's still an incredibly capable bow, I really feel like that it does have some drawbacks there. Where it makes up for it is in its aiming, because it definitely aims better than my Podium. I will say that. It's not night and day different, especially when you can add in some stabilizers, because you can really set that Podium up to be incredibly still and incredibly stable on target, but just right out of the box with no stabilizers, this HyperEdge is going to be hard to beat. I'm going to do the same thing on this. I'm going to draw it back. Keep an eye out on the limbs. You can see it's going to come beyond the horizontal point and then come back, and I'll do one more face in the camera so you can kind of see differences on being able to move it around and everything. So as I go to draw this back, you can see curves pretty far down beyond the horizontal part, and then when you go to let go, it's just coming back to that horizontal part. So like I said, very dead in the hand. If you're someone that's used to a hunting bow, this is going to be great. It's going to feel right at home with you. It's going to be exactly what you're used to. And again, like I said, very, very stable bow. Same thing when I go to draw it back here, hold it on target for you. It holds really well. It's holding very still. It may, even with me talking, I'd say it's still holding probably more still than that Podium, just holding it here and looking at it. Now what you'll notice here, when I go to grip the bow, I don't have to do a whole lot, and it turns, and it also canted a little bit right there too when I was just trying to torque the grip. This is probably about the most I'd ever torque the grip in a really random shot, but you can kind of see a little bit there. It's just twitchier. You'll notice it's easy to cant back and forth. As I'm torquing the grip here, it's canting back and forth, and that was something that I really don't have that problem with the Podium, and that's what I was talking about before. You'll notice a little less forgiveness just because of the way that the limbs and the limb pockets are designed on this one. Still an extremely good bow. I really like their zero torque cable guard, roller guard rather system here. I like that where it'll flex and come in and out. Obviously the Podium has the adjustable rod. This is very, very smooth on the draw. You know, it's not going to have any grit or anything like that developing over time because of the cable slide coming across that rod like on a Podium. I really like this. This may or may not be something that they may carry over to the new lines. If they did, I'd be very happy to see it. If they don't, it's still going to have a very capable system with that adjustable rod, but I do see them probably bringing this over because it does add a lot of smoothness to the draw and consistency to the whole process. A little bit of adjustability back here, what most people probably haven't looked at. I've seen some of these that just do maybe to the cam lean and the spacer setup or whatever was going on. It looks like maybe these were contacting with some veins or maybe some bigger veins. You can actually probably adjust this a little bit. There's a washer back here at the very back. You can probably change the thickness of that washer, and you can probably change the overall flex of it. Never played with that before. If you have, comment below, let me know. But just looking at it from an engineering standpoint, how it's built, how it's made, I'm guessing that might be there. Could mess it all up, I don't know. But overall, very capable bow, very good platform. Alright, so this is where I get to compare them side by side and let you see what I've seen from holding them. And the first time that I did this was today. I knew the riser was longer on the HyperEdge, but when I set them side by side, man, it makes this Podium look like a little baby bow next to this HyperEdge. It's really crazy. So I'm standing back this far so I can get it all on the camera. This is bottom to bottom the same, and you can see huge height difference on the riser. It's a lot. It makes it look like a baby bow. It is a 3.5 inch difference. Lengthwise on this HyperEdge is 3.5 inches longer. That's a lot. I would garner to believe that that's, I mean, I know it's their longest riser ever built, but it's maybe a ½ inch even more than if I had a 40-inch model on this. It's a lot. It's a whole lot longer. It's also thicker, and that adds some rigidity to it. It takes away some of the torsional torque on it. So what you would see from with the cable guard or the roller guard we put into it, it's 1/8 of an inch thicker at the arrow rest. So I've got some stats. I'm going to put those on screen here for you so you can see them. You can actually see the numbers themselves. So this is where I'm measuring them from, right here where the arrow rest is going to connect. And you can see that the 1/8 of an inch is going to come because it's just thicker right here where my finger is compared to right here. It's just a thicker base. But, I mean, like I said, it takes away some of the torque out of the bow. It also makes it a little bit more of a stable platform because it is longer like that. Overall, each bow is incredibly capable. HyperEdge here, very dead in the hand, very quiet, shoots great groups. Podium X Elite, can't say enough good about it. I would say it's their flagship target bow for a reason. What I would choose if I'm going to do it, I don't care about the noise, I don't care about the vibe, I just care about long range accuracy, grouping on target, and forgiveness. So for me, Podium wins out. It's a little bit more aggressive on the cam system, even with the spirals taken out to 70% let off. So both of them are at 70%. I pretty much got them exactly the same, as close as I could on peak weight, holding weight, and percentage of let off. Spirals are still a little bit more aggressive. Where they pay off is the back wall on them. They're extremely firm, but you can adjust it to make a little bit of forgiveness, a little bit of movement out of it, and you can almost get them, if you want them to be, as firm as what you would get out of a limb stop. Not quite, but very, very close. And that's going to be with a good set of aftermarket strings as well. So you get a good set of 452 and set these up correctly, and they are going to be dead solid against that back wall if you like that feel. HyperEdge here, more forgiving, but even with the 65% let off mods and draw stops on there, they're aluminum draw stops. It does firm up the wall a lot compared to what you would see with the 80% original ones that are on there, but it still gives, it's still mushy. You know, I mean, it's not like pulling against, you know, cheese or, you know, a limp rope, but it moves a lot more than what I would see on my spirals. I got used to it, wasn't a big deal. I learned to adjust my shot, adjust my release timing and everything around with it to still make it a very shootable platform. But if you're looking for a rock solid back wall, probably like the spirals the most if you can adjust them and shoot them often enough to stay in what I would call shooting shape. Beyond that, they do have a limb stop option on the HyperEdge here. So if you do want to have a completely firm back wall, you can adjust them, put a limb stop in it. So you do have that you know, available to you as well. Either one's a great bow. You're not going to go wrong with picking either one. If you're used to hunting bows and you want a forgiving, you know, cam that you can draw back and not kill yourself to draw back if you don't shoot very often, I'd say go with the HyperEdge. If you're looking for all-out accuracy, you shoot enough to stay in good shooter shape. You can adjust the cams around, Spiral Pros rather, with this Podium or the GTX. GTX is a little bit more forgiving. It's got a little bit spongier back wall compared to a spiral, but it's a little bit more forgiving on the draw and the way that you hold it. A little bit more adjustment on it too. You have a different module you can switch around from 65 to 75% let off. So both capable bows. My pick is the Podium though. Thanks for watching today. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you soon.